Yeah, here we
Banthor
go.
is running loose
Now we're going.
everywhere.
All right, now we're going.
And that's how Josh faced down the Banthor. It was awesome.
Good job, Josh.
What's crazy is we just had a whole line of impromptu openings to the show, and none of them got captured because we weren't live yet. Welcome everyone to the show, to Keystroke Medium Live. I am Josh Hayes here with my co-host Scott Moon, and Chris Fox is sitting in tonight to talk about The Last Jedi. Chris Fox is the author of 5,000 Words Per Hour, Right to Market, the Magitech Chronicles, the Destroyer Chronicles, and Bert, the Dark Lord, whose sequel, the second book, is coming out, you said, early September.
Yeah, I need about 3 more weeks to get that polished up.
Yes, I was really excited to see that series come out, and you've got quite a big response on the first book. I really enjoyed listening to the show you did with Lauren and Kayleen on it. That was really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, that series is by far and away my favorite. I love everything I've done, but Bert is the most fun character I've ever written.
For everybody in the live feed, welcome tonight. This is obviously the DJ hour of the show. We've had some connection issues that we're going to try to work out. Hopefully it'll get better. So just bear with us as we go along with this. We are going to be talking about The Last Jedi tonight, and that might be why the internet's playing hassle with our connection. Last week we sang the ever-living praises of Avengers Endgame, and we decided this week we would go completely the opposite direction and just completely tear apart a movie. And we picked the easiest terrible movie ever, which is Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Guess. Oh,
oh yeah. Oh, spoiler. Yeah, spoiler. I apologize. We had quite a response in the Keystroke group when I put out the show topic, but most of them were pretty much the same, that they all hated it. There was a couple people that liked different aspects of the show.
You should have sought out somebody who loved it, like The Last Jedi fan group. I'll look for it right now on Facebook. The true lovers of The Last Jedi fan group. I'm sure I can find it.
Oh yeah,
there are numerous. There's a lot of them out there. The main Star Wars Reddit on subreddit on Reddit is all people who like it.
Oh really?
we should have posted the link in that Reddit and just got ate up in the chat.
Oh yeah, we would. Yeah.
Well, how I discovered this is somebody posted my article on what I would have done to make The Last Jedi better on that page, and I got 2 comments, and it was unkind to say the least.
Oh, Reddit's horrible, man. Reddit's there. It's a good platform if you're there and you're into it.
Frenzy.
Well, it's like a big city. Like, it depends on what block you're on. You got to know the back alleys and where you're safe. So, like, there's a subreddit called Saltier Than Crate. Crate is the salt planet from The Last Jedi.
Oh, okay.
And this is all the people who dislike the movie. And so you've got a whole bunch of people, and this is where they talk about it. So that little corner of the internet still exists. It's just not on the main Star Wars forum.
I can't get over that little stutter jitter that your connection has. That just really,
I don't know if you,
I can just picture you sitting here and like spinning it back and forth as you're talking. That's what it sounds like.
It's actually really cool. We're doing that on purpose. Everybody who's watching, that's on purpose.
Yeah, you're welcome, everyone.
The salt planet's actually my favorite part of it, just for the visuals. But I mean, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit. In The Last Jedi, because I think it looks cool, but I don't know if it makes a lot of sense. But anyway, I don't want to get the format.
No. Let's start about what we did like about the movie, because we're going to talk forever about what we didn't like about the movie. So, Scott, why don't you go first and say, like you say, you like the visuals? Is it the only thing you like the movie, or is there something else?
Yeah, I like the visuals. No, I watched it. We talked about this before, because I watched it the first time, and I wasn't blown away by it, and everybody was complaining about it and stuff, and I was like, it's just a movie. I went and I turned off my brain for 2 hours and watched this movie, and it was fine. And then I would think about some of the logic things and about some of the stuff, like with how the Jedi could reach across the universe. We'll get to that later, but and that kind of bothered me. I thought it was kind of lame. And then I went and tried to watch it to get ready for the show, and I couldn't even finish it. I was like, I'm so tired. I'm just going to go to bed. But no, I really love the visuals, and not just that. Like, I like the planet where they're kind of like swooping over the surface, and it's making those red lines every place, and I like that. I like some of the early battle scenes, the visuals when the cannons are dropping down from the ship. I can't remember what they called them. I'm not a detail guy, and there's a lot of cool things there. Um, I wanted to like several of the characters. I think I think my biggest problem is there wasn't enough time developed in the characters. You know, they introduced new characters and expected you to care about him 10 seconds later. I'm like, I
Mhm.
don't know who this person is, and they're like a major part of the story now. So anyway, I'll
What
pass the
about you, Chris?
microphone.
What did you like about the movie, if anything?
I like the lightsabers.
Those are lights. Yeah,
All joking aside, like I want to try to be nice to this movie at least a little bit. I like that they had the courage to try something different. Now, I think what they tried didn't work, but I think that they were trying to subvert our expectations in what they felt like was an intelligent way. And I thought that after the first movie, which took no chances, that spoke highly of them. So while I disagree with Rian Johnson and a lot of what he did in this movie, you know, at least they tried something new, and I'll say that as a positive.
I like the visuals. What you talk about the lightsabers, the whole Emperor's throne room, the visuals with all the red and kind of almost a red noir kind of look to it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think visually it was very stimulating.
You know, I made a couple notes about something that I did like, which it remains to be seen whether or not it'll actually matter or come to something, because there was so much in the Force Awakens, like you said. Force Awakens was really just phoned in. It was A New Hope, just kind of remasked and made kind of pointless with the actions of the admiral, vice admiral in the Last Jedi, because you didn't really need to plan a killer base. Uh, and the firing of the weapon and then seeing it coming through the system, and like everybody's watching it coming through the system, and like, do you guys have any idea how big freaking space is? You're not gonna see that. But one of the things that I thought was interesting, and maybe one of the things that will pull through into the last movie, was that they made such a big deal about Rey's parents in the first one, and then they kind of blew it off in the second one. But one of the lines that stuck out to me on this last rewatch that I did today is that when Snoke is talking to Kylo at near really close to the beginning, he says something to him that kind of piqued my interest a little bit, and it could be that I'm wrong, and it could be just the way that he said it. But he was talking about Luke, and he was talking about Rey, and he says to Kylo, "You let Skywalker get away, and then." Or you said something about letting the Skywalker get away, and then he says something about you let the seat of the Jedi get away. Um, what it sounds like he's saying is he's talking about Luke in both sentences, but if he's saying it in separate sentences, it could be that he's talking about Luke and Rey.
Mm-hmm.
And if Rey is the seat of the Jedi, that means that she's a lot more than everybody's letting on, and maybe they're lying to her in this movie, or not telling her the truth. And so maybe Rey's history could still kind of be sorted in a way that could come back in the last movie as something cool.
Anakin's parents were nobody.
Right. Exactly. I think that, you know, everybody got hung up on the why is her family not important, but maybe it could be, but that's the only thing in the movie that really caught my interest and really made me think about it, because everything else is just so on the nose about the entire plot of everything.
Like I said, I didn't finish watching it the second time through, but there is a scene, right, where they basically tell her family's nobody, right?
Yeah,
remember that, right? When I saw that the first time, I thought, no, they're lying. Her family is somebody. That's a deception. They did that basically to hurt her or mislead her or something. That was my gut impression at the time.
Yeah,
but I didn't remember exactly. I didn't have any evidence for it. That was just instinct.
Yeah. And that's really the only thing that I liked about the movie, is that maybe hopefully they can redeem a little bit of that story, but everything else really, really, really fell flat to me. And I took like 3 pages of notes for Endgame. I've got like 8 pages of notes for this movie. So
Interesting. I think that's interesting on a psychological level.
I'm going to turn my light on so you can see me.
Okay. We talked.
I thought maybe you were the emperor there, Chris, or something.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. He's keeping the force
in the darkness.
One of the interesting things that, well, a lot of the things that they did in this movie were very easy button, and we talk about that a lot in fiction and writing, is not making it easy for the characters and you know, ramping up the odds as you go through the story. But a lot of the scenes and a lot of the beat points that they had were really easy button. I mean,
oh yeah,
completely like. So they escape into hyperspace, and then the Empire fleet catches them, and they automatically assume, okay, there's a tracker somewhere, but nobody knows how to deal with it except for a second-rate janitor from the Empire and for what I can tell, a guard on a door. They figure it out all by themselves, and they know how to take care of the tracker. They know that it's only on one ship for some reason. They know that it's not something on their ship. It has to be something on the Empire ship. And they know that they can disable it, but only for 6 minutes. Like, they know all of this. Why does not anybody else know? It didn't make any sense to me that they would know that information and then not share that information with anybody except for the one guy that wouldn't want to tell anybody else, which that is something completely different that doesn't have anything to do at this point. But my thing is that was such an easy button moment. Like, okay, we're being tracked. I know exactly how we're being tracked and how to diffuse it. That, I mean, why wouldn't you think that the tracker is on their ship? I mean, they did it to Millennium Vulcan in the first, in the fourth episode, where they put a tracking device on the ship. That makes sense. But having a tracking device that's on the tracker ship doesn't make any sense. That just means they have really good scanners, right? Am I wrong about that? Or
no.
Well, everything they do is technobabble. It's not actual science, right. and that speaks to the problem that we're running into with the series as a whole. And to be fair, like, in a way, it's not their fault. What they don't realize is that people like us grew up with Star Wars. So my first memory, I was 3 years old, sitting on the bumper of my mom's car watching Empire Strikes Back, the Battle of the Hoth. That is literally my first memory. Awesome. And like everybody, we interact with, we love Star Wars growing up. We love the original movies. We had the toys, a huge part of our childhood. Return of the Jedi came out when I was 7. But what they don't realize is that after that period, we went on to become soldiers and scientists. And along the way, we read all the books and we played all the video games like Knights of the Old Republic. And Star Wars became real and kind of attained a fabric that I feel like they don't recognize, that we look for an internal consistency that they don't expect needs to be there, and so they don't add it because they don't think it has to be. And the reason why the Marvel movies work and Star Wars is failing is because Marvel having Feige, who understands tone and theme, and no one for that.
What's interesting about that is you mentioned Marvel, and that was one of the first thoughts I had at the beginning of the movie. They have this kind of like comedic interaction between Poe and the Admiral, and Poe starts playing with the Admiral, like pretending he can't hear him over the radio. And my first thought was, man, that is exactly like an interaction that they would do in the MCU, because the MCU is all about like kind of chit chat back and forth and kind of making light of important moments. And I was like, man, they're just really trying to pull in the Marvel fan base with that kind of levity in the tense atmosphere that's supposed to be happening, but it failed miserably, obviously. And I thought that was interesting. That first, why would one fighter line up in front of a dreadnought and just look at them? And why wouldn't they just go, okay, you're dead, and push a button?
Yeah, why does the guy that we feared entered in the previous movie not immediately blow up his ship? Why is he falling for a ruse? They was the Rich McDonald shift manager be like, no, I'm not falling for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Be rebel, blow up rebel. That's basically how I do things. I don't want to do people. Why would I want to go there?
And then we talked about the bombers a little bit in the last episode, and how they kind of explained away, or a lot of people have explained away, like the magnetic
science,
kind of a magnetic firing system maybe that the bombers had that kind of launched the the bombs out of the bomber and whatever. There's no gravity in space, and they said, well, it's kind of like a rail gun where they just push the bombs out and then they just keep going, obviously.
They
But
talked about the internal gravity. The ship has artificial gravity, and they fell inside the ship and then just kept going. Is
Right.
the one article I read that somebody had used.
right, but they don't mention why in the hell they need a bomber that goes like 5 miles an hour in space. Like, what sense does that make?
None. And why would you not have just fired drones from like 100 miles away or thousands of miles away?
Right.
Use the Y-wing bomber or any of the other,
or just turn a ship into hyperspace and fly it into the dreadnought. Why not do that if you thought that could work?
right?
Which they did.
Which they did, which is dumb. We talked about that when we were talking about this getting ready for the show earlier. My theory was, and it's just a hunch, but somebody watched a cool World War II movie or something. It was like, you know what we need to do? We need to have like a bomber thing, like, Britain over Nazi Germany or something. We'll drop all these bombs and it'll be like the Battle of Britain.
But you're probably absolutely right, because
and then they made it into a teen Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, they had turrets on the ship like you would have in like a B-52 bomber.
Yeah.
So you're probably right there.
Yeah.
One of the things that was interesting about that whole setup is after the fact, like Poe gets demoted, and then what's her name won't tell him the plans, and so he gets butthurt, and Finn and what's her name Rose tell him what their plan is, and he's like, well, that's a really good idea. We should do that. But I'm mad at the Admiral for not telling me what's going on, so I'm not going to tell them what we're going to do until it's really kind of too late. And then
because he's not a professional soldier or anything that have any type of connection to the chain of command or a team of any sort.
Right. Yeah.
Of course, he got them all killed in the bomber thing, so he probably has nobody to talk to.
Right. And so, but so then they make some kind of long distance hypercall to what's her face from the first movie.
Right. How is that even possible again?
But yeah, that was what, when you're talking earlier, that's my other favorite visual is when she's doing a little fight in the bubble and she's talking and she's shooting. I thought that was cool. That was mildly entertaining. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh, Rick says it's a B-25, not a B-52. Okay, that's my fault. I think
B-52 is
my internal techno babble is ridiculous, right? No, but that long distance phone call while she's having a battle with somebody, she tells them, "Oh yeah, there's cool, but they could probably do it." But you're telling me there's nobody in the entire Rebel fleet that knows how to hack a tracking computer, and they have to go somewhere to find this guy?
And how do they get there?
Well, I don't understand, and this is the part that really shakes me. How are they able to leave the fleet and come back? And if you can leave and come back, then why can't the Imperials catch up? They have better ships. It's like I'm very confused.
And why don't you have a bunch of people like your critical staff or women and children for whatever? Why don't you have some people leaving? It seems like it'd be a good time to evacuate some people if that was an option.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like put them all on that. We're losing Chris there.
Oh, we're losing. He'll be back.
Why not? Why not just put everybody on the transports that nobody can track and like
get them the hell out of there?
Away. What I thought, and this is what kind of bugs me about the whole leaving and come back and leaving and coming back, is that I'm pretty sure that they made a big deal during the series about we've detected a ship coming into hyperspace, or the ship,
that's a common,
dropped into hyperspace, like when in the Hoth system. They detected our exit from hyperspace. Admiral What's-His-Nuts came out of hyperspace too quickly, or something like that.
Well, and they always show it. They always do the visual. Shoot, the ship's shooting in.
Exactly. So how do these people not know that these ships are leaving and coming? And if they know that they're leaving and coming, shouldn't that be like a red flag? And if they can leave and come back, why?
There's mischief afoot.
Like Chris said, why would they just not jump out of system and then come back in system, like closer, like do a leapfrog? If they can't catch them in normal space, why not exit the system in hyperspace and then come back in the system from hyperspace in front of them?
I thought that then that's about where I quit watching this last time. Is it like I said, it's an easy button. They're trying to make an easy button a hard button. So instead of having them just go straight over and just jump onto the Empire ship or the First Order ship, they had them go do something else first and come back.
Yeah.
But the fact that they could do that was so incredibly easy for them to do it. And again, they went right there, found the thing, and then came right back.
Oh yeah, the candle bite scene, I timed it. From the time that they get there until the time that they leave is about 15 minutes of film time. So whatever it is equates to real life time. But again, it was all easy button. They went to the planet where they were supposed to go to. They went to the casino in a casino that's, I don't know, as big as any casino in Las Vegas. You would go there trying to find someone, and it'd be practically impossible if you don't know what they look like, and you're just looking for a flower on the.
Yeah, can you imagine being on the Vegas Strip, being like, we've got to find somebody with a carnation on his lapel?
Right, like that.
And we sure hope nobody else likes carnations.
And if she knows,
could be like Carnation Week or something,
right? And if she knows what he's wearing, couldn't she just tell him what he looks like? Like that doesn't seem like. Why wouldn't you just not tell this? I mean, he looks.
But I disagree with you completely that it was the easy button, because it was clearly very difficult. They needed to park somewhere where they wouldn't get towed. That was clearly hard. Like, they couldn't park somewhere where they wouldn't get towed. And so obviously there was a difficulty they had to overcome.
I wrote that down. Those are the shuttle parkers, is what the alien says to the guard when they come into the. First of all, they knew which casino they went to, obviously, but they parked on the beach. Like it's illegal parking, and then they get arrested for illegal parking. Scott, how many times have you arrested somebody for illegal parking? Unless it was a warrant, no one's get there.
Unless I went to write in their ticket and they had 5 pounds of meth on the front seat. I'm like, oh yeah, this ticket's going to become something a little different.
The other thing that's interesting is none of these people has ever been to this planet, as far as I could tell. And then there's a part right before they see these horses, which is crazy.
Horse analogs.
Yeah, that the whole building starts shaking. Like, I mean, everybody feels it. The whole thing is, and she goes, "Is that what I think it is?" And I'm like, "What you think it is? You've never been here. How do you know what you think it is?" And then that whole building shaking thing is the race somewhere. And then she's like, "Well, I've never seen them before." And I'm like, "So how do you know what they are?" Like the whole concept of knowing what a shaking thing, because it could have been a ship flying over the casino. Like, that doesn't make any sense. And I mean, it goes, I get it.
I'll let that go. Maybe she heard it on another planet. Like, she's heard a similar race.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you that. I give you that. But I was just so like kind of put off by her character in general that pretty much everything she did, I was like rolling my eyes about. Oh, by the way, if you're still having video troubles, Chris, our resident techie Walt says if you're still having server issues or connection issues, you can switch off your video to save bandwidth. If your connection keeps going wonky.
Yeah, if it does, I'll kill video, and that should help.
Okay.
Or you can just cut off your audio, and we'll make up with whatever we think you're saying, and we'll be very nice, and we won't say anything inappropriate.
That would actually probably be a lot more fun for everybody involved.
That could be very interesting. We're going to do that to Josh later.
That's right. I'm just going to mute myself, and yeah.
We'll make that part of every show.
I think that whole Canto Bight sequence is probably the worst sequence in the history of any Star Wars movie ever. But I think anybody could probably justify that it's probably one of the worst sequences in any movie ever, because there's really not any point to the whole thing.
Right. How is the movie different to take it out?
Right. It's not.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not.
Yeah.
And that's the definition of extraneous.
The other thing is so we talked about the hyper in and hyper out of getting to the system. And Chris, I don't know if you were here when we were talking about most of the other movies. When you talk about hypering into a system, typically they have stated the fleet has just jumped into the system from hyperspace or something like so there's obviously a mechanism in place so that they know when a ship jumps into system, but obviously that's not working now because nobody knows when people are leaving and coming back. But another thing that I thought was interesting is they go and pick this guy up, and then he steals an arms dealer's ship, which apparently didn't have guards on it. They just stole it. And
they're pretty lax that way. You know?
Yeah. But then how the hell do they get on the ship? Like, how do they get on this big, huge, the Emperor, well, Snoke is on board the ship, right? So how do they get on? There's absolutely.
How do they park?
Right. They didn't get arrested for
they've already proven they're not good at parking. So like, how did they park?
It doesn't make
any. How this is gonna go?
Like, there should have there's sensors It's in space. They have to have some type of sensors. If they don't get the hyperdrive, okay, but you don't sense a ship coming and docking with your ship.
We're back to the problem with Ryan Johnson to understand Star Wars. He doesn't know the technology. He didn't play Knights of the Old Republic. He doesn't get the essence of what makes Star Wars Star Wars. So he's just telling a science fiction tale with what he thinks the parameters are.
Yeah.
Wrote his own rule book on that. Okay.
Go ahead, Scott.
I say, do we want to do some fixing now, or do you want to keep going through your 8 pages of notes? I'm good with either way.
Well, let's talk
Might
about
be too early to start fixing yet.
No, we can take it in chunks. So let's just talk about the most obvious chunk here, which is the how do we get away from a ship that's tracking us chunk? Like, is there a way that we can rewrite this section of the movie, this plot line of the movie? They have to disable the tracker to get away. Is there a way that we can do it with the resources that they had, or a logical way to do it with any resource?
We've already broken the plot at this point. I feel like we have to go back a little further.
Okay, do it.
I think what we need to do is we have to have the rebels flee to a specific location where they have a stronghold that can be overwhelmed and worn down. And yeah, I'm borrowing this from my article, but I think that Coruscant is a really, really important world in their universe. Having a slow space chase in a universe where in 40 years we've never heard anything about fuel doesn't make any sense. And I think if you leave that in the movie is broken.
I completely agree on, and two points of that. The fuel is ridiculous because nobody's ever said anything about it, like you said. But then the planet, they made a big deal about it when they revealed it to whoever at the end. They said it's an uncharted rebel base in an uncharted system or whatever, right? So if it's an uncharted system and an uncharted planet, when the Empire follows them there, wouldn't their computers just pop up some kind of a, hey, this is an uncharted system, we should probably know something about this system? Or even the commander, okay, do a little bit of recon and say, what system were we in? I don't know, it's uncharted. That's interesting. Why did the rebels come here? Like, that kind of logical train of operation didn't happen at all. They were just so concerned on the fleet and chasing them.
But to be fair, if you look at Holdo from the very beginning, that level of competence matches.
Yeah, that's also true. Yes.
What we're talking about now brings up something, I'll touch it briefly, is that one of the things I felt was wrong with it is that they just introduced new characters and new stuff when there was a massively rich world universe background of things they could have used. They could have used characters that people already loved and knew, either from the books or the movies, or even just from the first, episode in this trilogy, or like I said, using Coruscant or something. There's planets that people that follow Star Wars know. Why do you have to have a brand new place with brand new technology and brand new problems that have never existed, like there being a fuel shortage, which has never happened, and all those things? So I think that they didn't utilize what was already there. That's a major weakness of the story for me.
That happens often enough that I wonder if there's something legal behind the scenes that we're unaware of. Like, they can't use as much stuff from like the first series because they jet in so much stuff for no reason. Why aren't we using Hoth and Tatooine and existing planets that we already have in universe? Like, there's so much content you could reuse that would reduce your costs. That would have the callbacks to nostalgic material that fans will see. Like, there's no downside at all, except maybe if they know that it exists because they don't know Star Wars very well.
Yeah, that's interesting that,
because they use Tatooine, they don't use Hoth.
Did they use Tatooine?
They did not use Tatooine. That's that planet I jokingly called not Tatooine because that's not Tatooine.
Yeah, it's not.
That's not Tatooine. Nope.
It was
Jakku.
Jakku.
You're right.
That's another thing. Like she mentioned, she's from Jakku, and Luke's like, "Oh yeah, that is a crap hole planet." Like, like everybody knows every single planet in the universe. One of the comments I just saw was pretty. Let me find. Bill says Battlefield Earth made more sense if you read the book, but the movie Battlefield Earth was probably better than The Last Jedi, in my opinion. If we're talking
that movie has become a drinking game in my household.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of drinking game, if you watch The Last Jedi, you have to play I drink a beer every time somebody says hope. That's the that's the new drinking game for that movie. It's required. But so if we can't fix the movie from the tracking device or the chase, really, I mean, so in every movie there are several plot lines that are independent of each other and then kind of come back and form the complete story. This overall, the plot line in this movie, there's only like two, which was Rey's growth, which was zilch. Actually, that's not true. She went from like 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. That was her growth. But then the rest of it was not, there was no change. There was nothing that happened in this movie to lead up to a bigger conflict at the end, in the last movie. It was literally a bridge movie that did nothing for the story except kill Snoke, which was they built up to be this big Emperor guy, replacement for the Emperor, and then killed him off.
It sets
Which
up
I
a bad precedent too, because now you think that arch villain's got to go every movie. It's like, well, we killed Snoke, we should kill this one.
Well, the good news is there probably won't be too many more movies.
Yeah.
yeah. It's sad because we talked about rights and we talked about why they didn't use the material available to them. And I think I mentioned this last week too. If they would have made the Thrawn trilogy, I think that they would have done way, way, way better. Just because I mean the material's already written, right? Like
Yeah, you could have done it for B, and it would have been perfect.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Gosh, and what's crazy is that there's so much material out, like fan made movies or Knights of the Old Republic, the games. There's so much good Star Wars material out there, even in the expanded universe books that don't have anything to do with Thrawn, but the other ones. There's so much material out there. It almost seems like the execs or the creators of the movie just were like, we don't care anything about that, because somebody had to tell. Like everybody keeps saying, like even in the chat, Ryan said Ryan hadn't heard this, or Ryan hadn't heard that, or Ryan didn't know anything. That's very obvious, but somebody did. There is somebody in Disney and in the production company that knows stuff about Star Wars. There has to be.
Why do you think that, Josh? No, I'm serious. Like, why do you think that is? Because I don't. I just disagree completely.
Well, because it's such a, like, I think it's such a big franchise, and there's so much money riding on it. You would think that they could just reach out on the internet and talk to people.
Have you seen their sales figures after this?
I have not.
So two things recently that were very important. The first was toy sales, which are at a record low. Now, toy sales are like 75% of the profit that they were supposed to make off this. So it's not the movies that they make, it's not the cartoons, it's the toys. True. And the toys aren't selling. And then the other big piece of news is, we're going to love this because you guys know Nick and Jason so well, Galaxy's Edge, the park, crashed and burned.
Really?
So what they set up is they were only going to let people in with a reservation. And because they figured they'd be so busy, and there's pictures of like 12 people in the park. Like, no one came because they don't have the original characters. They don't have the prequel characters. All they have is the new trilogy.
No way.
Which are brand new characters we've never met before and have no real reason to care about, except for the little 1 minute intro they gave on them.
Well, why wouldn't they have the old characters on? That doesn't make any sense.
So it begs a question. Like, it could be a licensing issue. What if they have to kick back George Lucas some money on the original films every time they use it or something? Like, or maybe they just want the full reboot, where they're like, you know what, we're going to flush everything that existed before away and create Disney Star Wars from scratch. They're calling this episode 7, but really what it is, they've done a soft reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
insane. I mean, you're probably right.
Well, movies get made through a much different process than books, because you have you might have a book that is that's one part of the package. You might have a key actor that's one part of the package. You might have your special effects, your director, and if you get enough parts of the package, then it happens. And then some people are actors that are big enough, they're the whole thing. Like The Rock could be in a movie. They'll make a movie because The Rock's going to be in it. Or they'll make a Star Wars movie because they have apparently a partial license or whatever. And so, they're really building it out of spare parts almost every movie,
Mhm.
seems like, or so I've read.
I think what's crazy is that even this is going to get off of Star Wars, but even just a lot of most of the movies that are coming out now um, aren't written well. They're just basically platforms for famous people to be on screen and have them do things, and it seems like to me that people just the majority of people don't care about whether or
Why do
not
we
the
think that
story is
is?
good.
I disagree. I think they absolutely do care, but that they're not being provided with what they want because people respond to the Stranger Things of the world. They love good stories. If this had been an amazing series, Star Wars would be hotter than it's ever been if it had been a great story. But the story's not there, so we're not connecting to the characters. So people are like, eh.
Yeah,
I really wanted, and that's the thing is I wanted my first Star Wars experience because like my whole life I've been going, I wish I could see Star Wars again for the first time.
Mm.
That's what I'm looking for in a movie. And that's kind of that and that's the bar that I measure everything against since I was 11 or whatever. And it's really hard to come anywhere close to it, but I was really hoping it would be something really special. Instead, it got a
I
half-assed effort, basically.
yeah. I actually liked the first movie, The Force Awakens. So like, there's problems.
I
Obviously,
liked it. I liked
it's
it.
derivative, but like I felt like it paved the road, and I liked Ray at the end of that movie, where there were again problems. There are some Mary Sue complaints that we could argue about, but I was hoping they were building her up to be like the living representation of the Force, and so I was still on board at that point. And I feel like The Last Jedi really squandered what they had built there. It could have been an amazing character, and I really wanted Ray to be the embodiment of the franchise. And by the ending of the second movie, it just you don't click because she doesn't have to work or change or
Yeah.
do anything. Like, why didn't we get a montage earlier in the movie where she was learning to lift rocks so that when she used the ability at the end of the movie, it made sense? Like, what
Right.
about setups and payoffs? Are those not a thing anymore?
It was
Yeah.
like all they wanted was the payoff, and they wanted to skip all the setup for all the like even Luke through Empire. He had a lot of failure in his training, and he was there for uh not he was there for a little the majority of the movie before he
Yeah.
left.
Big
But
chunk.
he did a lot while he was there. But even then he still failed. Like he still lost. And it just seems like Ray, well, she didn't lose, but she didn't really win either. She didn't really do anything. She fought up.
She won every confrontation she was involved in. That's what she did.
Yeah, but did she win them, or did Kylo basically hold her hand through that whole fight, and then she did some stuff that she probably shouldn't have been able to do, and then she lifted up. Well, I guess she did lift up the rock, so that's her win. But she didn't earn any of it. Is what my point was. She didn't do anything to earn any of it. And that's what really irritated me about her character, because there wasn't any growth. The whole film has no growth whatsoever for anybody.
Yeah, and then the training for her training in that movie was a lot of kind of half jokes, like when he throws the lightsaber over his shoulder. That was where it all started to go horribly wrong. But like I did like The Force Awakens, and I did like Solo, and a lot of people like Solo. I was entertained, and I didn't turn. I haven't watched him a second time or a third time. I think I've watched The Force Awakens twice.
I think if Solo had come out before The Last Jedi, it would have been much better received.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't. I went into Solo just tainted from The Last Jedi. So
I didn't go into Solo. I saw it on Netflix like a year and a half later.
Well, I'm probably not going to go see. I'll probably wait until the Jedi movie comes out on direct digital before I see it.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're all diehard, lifelong Star Wars fans. We don't even care about the last movie. Like, I'm not going to the theater for the last movie. What does that say, man? I camped out for the prequels. Like, we camped in line for 3 days. At the time, I ran a computer store, and we had one person in the store, or everyone else is in line, like with tickets for Star Wars for 3 days.
Yeah.
And now the last movie in a 9-movie series is coming out, and we don't care.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. That's what they showed all the time. And there would be lines around the block. I mean, literally, like all the way around a city block of people trying to get into the movie theater to watch those.
I remember I went back and saw I went back and saw The Phantom Menace like probably 6 times in the theater when it first came out. And now when I watch it through my writer's lens, like it's a dumb movie. But when I first watched it, I liked it. Granted, it's better than The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens, I think. It would have been a lot better had Jar Jar not been in it. But I thought that The Phantom Menace was really good. Like I didn't like that Darth Maul died at the end, but
that was disappointing.
I thought Darth Maul was a good character. I think that he could have very easily taken Count Dooku's place and just left Maul in the whole movie or the whole trilogy, and that would have been kind of an investment in that character. Because when Dooku got there, they made Dooku out to be this like really amped up Sith Lord thing, but he really wasn't. Like he didn't do anything, and then Grievous with his Jedi lightsabers. Even with the people in red that were standing around the Emperor, like
the Imperial Guard.
Yeah, who are they? Like that would have been something cool to see. Like, but they all died too. So now, like, who's going to be the bad guy in the last movie? It's going to be Ren.
The Knights of Ren were mentioned once and haven't been used, so they can use those. And then Palpatine, and that's all they've got. Literally, the only villains still alive in Star Wars they can draw on are those two.
Yeah, because nobody cares about the whatever Admiral Hawk is that his name? I don't even know the bad guy's name. Hawks, yeah. And we all know Kylo's not going to do anything.
He's going to lose again. We know that.
You get really mad and have a temper tantrum and break some stuff.
That's really right. Great. Let's take a break just really quick. I want to touch on the show sponsor for this week, and then we can dive back into maybe we'll talk about the ending a little bit. So I've got some notes on that too, if you want. All right, this week's is August 19th. This week's sponsor is Alien Prison Ship by Terrence Malloy. It's a sci-fi action thriller. What happens when the galaxy's most dangerous criminals crash land on Earth? Spoiler alert, nothing good. Sergeant Rice Scott was already smack bang in the middle of a bad day when things decided to go worse on a cosmic scale after a prison ship transporting the galaxy's worst criminals crash lands in downtown Atlanta. Reyes is forced to team up with the only surviving prison guard to hunt down and destroy the escaped prisoners before they wreak havoc on the city. Inspired by the popcorn blockbuster action movies of the 80s and 90s, Alien Prison Ship is sure to please fans who love pulse racing, science fiction, and nonstop action. A must-read for genre lovers. That is Alien Prison Ship by Terrence Malloy. I'll get the link here in a second. Go check it out. It's 99 cents right now. I'm not sure how long it's going to be 99 cents. So if you want to...
just bought it.
Oh, nice. It is the cover's pretty cool. It's got some nice contrast on the cover, so it looks nice. And I forgot the monitor was still on. Sorry about that. My son's going to bed and he does not want to. Sorry about that, buddy. I apologize. I'll get the link here in a second. I lost it now that my son's yelling at the background. So we've already kind of decided that we can't fix the movie. Do you guys think that we can make a better payoff of the end? Because I don't think that the end really paid off anything. Do you guys have any thoughts on how to make the end a better payoff?
I do.
Go for it.
Well, I'm just going to borrow from my article, which is cheating, but
do it.
No.
The ending that I set up is as follows. The big problem I think most people have with this movie is Luke refusing to train Rey. There's no reason at all that realistically that he would do that. And instead of throwing the lightsaber away, I see him handing it reverently back to her and saying, "This no longer belongs to me, it belongs to you," and then training her and actually making her work for it and putting her through a lot of the same stuff that he went through so that we see it from a new point of view. We saw Luke go through this a generation ago. Now we are seeing it from kind of the right perspective, and he's genuinely bonding with her. That's kind of what I wanted to see for Rey. And I feel like they really could have built on that relationship and didn't. And that's kind of my chief complaint about the whole movie is sort of what they did to Luke, because it doesn't make any sense to me. Like it doesn't click, because thematically it's so alien to what came before and what they built for 6 movies.
And one of the things that kind of confused me about the ending is that he force projects himself, which okay, that we haven't seen that before, but it's a new power, whatever, it's cool. And then through the force projection, he can deliver the dice from the Millennium Falcon's thing, Han's dice. He hands them to Leia, and then goes out and has this confrontation. But if he's just a force projection, how did he hand her the dice?
They had to be fake. In my head, they were fake, and they disappeared at the end of the movie.
Good call. Yeah, they just.
That's the only way that works
What
for
the
me.
hell? I
Either
thought
that,
you gave me
either
some
that, or
dice, and
Leia
they
is also
disappeared.
fake, and she's also a force projection, and she's still actually floating in space.
It's all a dream that she had while floating in
I think they should have
space.
left her dead. I think that would have been a great ending to Leia.
That was my take. Like you kill her off in a heroic fashion because that's what the actress deserved, and you don't use CGI to bring her back in the next movie. So what I would have done for an ending for a payoff is I never liked the idea that Rey was the only Jedi. I thought what they were going to do is all three of them were dying. So Rey is by far and away the most powerful Jedi, but the other two are also force sensitive, so we can see it's not as special as we once thought it was.
Right.
And so what would happen is instead of our space chase, you've got Coruscant is Imperial capital, and they don't want to blow it up. So the First Order is winning, but they don't actually want the world because they want the capital. Like this is the historic capital of the Empire. They want it as a symbol. So they're trying to conquer it instead. And while they're conquering it, we get the scene where Leia is kind of blown up by Kylo. But this time, instead of it being in space, it's happening on Coruscant, and she's killed. And when this is going on and the end is invading, all of a sudden now, because Canto bites and it never happened, all of a sudden now Finn wakes up. And he's woken up because Luke is talking to him in his head. And Luke starts guiding Finn and Poe and teaching them a little bit and where they need to be. And as it turns out, right then, 2 Knights of Kylo Ren are arriving. So we've got a female Jedi and like a badass looking alien. And they're just carving shit up and cutting people down. And you get Finn who steps up and you think he's going to fight. And he manages to pick up a lightsaber, maybe it's skittered across the floor, and he picked it up. And it looks like he's going to go into combat. And all of a sudden he turns around and he runs away like a cat. And so they chase him, and we get a funny scene like that. So we could still have comedy and have Finn be a little bit of comic relief, but now he's a comic relief with force sensitivity. He's a weak Jedi. And you have Poe do something very similar where his Jedi gifts are focused towards him being a fighter pilot. So they're not as strong as Rey, but, they are Jedi. And Luke helps him get into position. Rey comes at the end to lift the rock. Rey's going to end up ultimately saving everybody. But that way you've involved everybody. And you get the initial, I guess, payoff that we were all hoping for. And the characters that you're building, like, the lesson isn't either you're born like Rey and you have superpowers and you're better than everybody, or you're born like Finn and you don't matter and you're stupid. Like the lesson is everybody matters and everybody can have some skills and contribute in some way. And I feel like it's sorely lacking in this trilogy.
I like that.
I thought I would have really preferred that too, because it gives them a reason not to blow the shit out of the planet, right? If you do it like you say, one of the things that I thought about the ending was they go to this base. It's a secret hidden rebel base. Why does the First Order even go down to the planet? They don't care. They're not trying to save anything. They're not trying to get anything from the rebels. They don't care about the rebels. They're just trying to kill them all. So now they're on a planet. They're not going anywhere now. They know where they're going. They know where they're at. Why not just blast it to hell? Like, just bombard it. Even if they don't have a Star Killer base or a Death Star, they have shit tons of weapons on their ships. They could just bombard the hell out of that.
No, dude, just hyperspace a brick into
the
base.
That's right. Hyperspace
We're
a brick.
done. We're done.
Now we know that worked. They could turn that tactic to their advantage.
Which that's kind of the elephant in the room, I think. And I think that whole sequence, doesn't it just ruin all the rules that we've kind of established for the entire universe of Star Wars, for weapons and just everything? Like, if this was possible, if she knew that she could do this, which obviously she did because she turned around the ship and she did it, but then other people would know it too. So why not take any hyper capable ship? Doesn't seem like it needs to be a biggest ship or a little ship. Just take an X-Wing, make a droid, fly the X-Wing into the Death Star or into the Super Destroyer or whatever.
Well, at that point, you have no Death Star, because why did you build a Death Star in the first place? Like, you're all, I make 12 drones and blow up these 12 planets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody was like, oh, it's such a cool shot and it's beautiful and blah, blah, blah. But but it makes absolutely no sense
was
at
definitely
all.
But if you
storyline.
asked your family and friends at the time, nobody was really thinking about that. They were just thinking about the fact that it was a cool shot, and that is why it was created. And ultimately, the new Star Wars is not science fiction. And I don't know if it counts as space fantasy, because even space fantasy has more cohesion. Like dragons and wizards have a lot more rules than the new Star Wars.
Yep.
And I feel like that's what they're missing, and they don't understand needs to be present. It's like, have you guys watched that TV show, Another Life?
I started watching it, but I stopped about halfway through the first episode.
That was an excellent decision. It gets worse all through to the end of it. I watched it so I could write an article about it.
Yeah.
It's a TV show made by people who are checking demographic boxes and don't know anything at all about science fiction. They don't wear uniforms. They put a bunch of kids with no birth control on a ship. This is humanity's last mission, and they're supposed to be the best of the best. None of them have any training. They're all super emotional and killing each other. Like, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the sort of writing we got for The Last Jedi. You don't have a Kevin Feige. You don't have somebody who knows this material and honors it like we do.
Do you think it's that is because it's labeled science fiction, and people just take that? Because when I tell people I'm a science fiction author, 9 times out of 10 I get this look like, oh, that's sweet. But if I think that if I had said that I write stuff like Game of Thrones, I'd be like, oh, that's really interesting. Or write like thrillers like Brad Thor or something like that. That would be really interesting. But for some reason, the phrase or the label science fiction kind of automatically makes it campy. And do you think that they think they're serving their audience because everybody thinks science fiction is supposed to be? I don't know, because The Expanse isn't. Maybe we should do The Expanse next episode.
I have a deep question I can't answer myself, and is Disney doing this really intelligently, saying we're going to jettison the old Star Wars audience and sort of kill it off, and build a new one, and going forward we're going to build it up into exactly what we want it to be, and it's going to lay seamlessly with the rest of our IPs, and maybe this is the most brilliant move ever, and it actually ends up being a mix of boys and girls that love it? Or did they just screw it up that badly? That was their goal and they missed the mark. And as more sales numbers come in, it appears to be the latter. It looks like they basically gambled $4 billion and lost.
It seems like a really expensive. It seems like that's like buying a brand new car and saying, I'm going to buy a brand new car, but I'm going to strip it to the bones and completely redo it. I mean, but you're right. Maybe that's somebody's decision. I think they just screwed it up, and I think the reason they screwed it up is because they're like, well, this is an easy this investment will automatically sell. It's Star Wars. All we do anything, people will buy it. And so, in my opinion, they were lazy. And they disrespected their audience by just throwing out something they thought would just automatically sell no matter what they did.
Are you guys gamers? Do you play video games at all?
Yes.
Not as much as I used to.
I'm a hardcore gamer. I play way too many games. And games, I played all of them. They have not released a good Star Wars game since Knights of the Old Republic 2. Like something that I was super excited about in the last 10 to 15 years. Yep. It's almost all been garbage.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Completely agree. I played I never finished Knights of the Old Republic, but I played it. And I really liked it.
Play it right now.
Yeah. I liked the story behind it, and I almost kind of wish there was some rumors that they were going to do a Knights of the Old Republic movie or a series.
The creators of Game of Thrones are supposedly working on
it. See, that doesn't even make me feel good either because of what they did to Game of Thrones.
There was good stuff.
No. I'm just talking about the last season. But so I guess the $1 million question would be, do you think that, and we didn't even touch on all the bad stuff that we could probably go for 2 hours about all of them, but do you think that there's any way possible in your mind that episode 9 could come back and completely redeem themselves like Dumb and Dumber on a $5 scooter? Do you think that they?
No, there is a 0% chance of that occurring. Not a 0.00001. There is a 0% chance of this happening. And I had a conversation with somebody on Reddit today, as a matter of fact. And they love The Last Jedi, and I hate The Last Jedi. We were in 100% agreement. We're like, there's literally no way they can make a movie that'll satisfy both of us. If they make something that I love, which I don't think they can do, but if they did, this person's going to hate it. So, like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You split the fan base, and you cannot reunite it.
Yeah. I don't think there is either. Even even with I think that they were trying to pull everybody back with the Palpatine thing and the Death Star and the crash planet or whatever, but I don't think that there's any way that they could make me care about the characters enough to say yes, they did it, because I just don't care, and they didn't earn any of it.
There's no tension. Like,
Yeah.
who's the bad guy? Like, think about at the end of Empire Strikes Back, or at the end of Episode 2, the stakes and the tension and the things that were going on in each of those respective movies.
Yes, absolutely. You know, you have the main protagonist getting his hand cut off in Empire. You have the
You had Ewoks defeating the stormtroopers and the Adawalkers.
Yeah. But
which
yeah,
I actually enjoyed, but it was.
I love that scene.
There wasn't anything in the movie that ramped up the tension to such a point where you were like, oh, they're backed up against the wall now, and how the hell are they going to get out of it? I mean, the last scene in the movie shows a kid just nonchalantly using the Force to grab a broom and sweep, and it was almost kind of, I thought, like maybe like they did it as like a Marvel post-credit scene where they're like, oh, watch this kid's going to use the Force and haha, we're going to have more Jedis. But it just kind of summed up the whole movie, right? What was the point of that? Like, what was the point of that kid grabbing that broom? Absolutely nothing. And even if they do come back in the third movie and that kid like saves the day, I don't care, because I don't care about the kid.
We have no connection to him, and you can't build it up in one movie. If we met him in the first frame of the movie, by the end of the movie, we're not going to be attached enough to that kid to care what happens to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that was a really, really fun episode, because I like talking to people who hate The Last Jedi as much as I do, because I hate trying to explain to people who like it, like, you have no idea what you're talking about. So, Chris, thanks so much for coming on short notice, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. This topic's near dear to my heart.
I really, when somebody in the group said that you had an article, and then I remembered reading it, and so I was like, oh, we got to get him on to talk about it. That'll be great. If you want us to read the article, by the way, Chris posted it in the group under the first post that I have in there about what do you guys want to, what we're talking about tonight. And so
everybody go read it.
I think it's what The Last Jedi could have been.
You know what? I'll just I'll link it in the live chat here, and I'll put it in the show notes too. Let me get the link here.
So what are we going to do next time? We could do The Expanse next time.
Maybe we should do the Expanse next time, because
give me I've read the first, I think, 3 books. And then I could binge.
Yeah, I've read the first.
I could binge watch all the television things or whatever.
We're actually doing a rewatch right now. We're in season 1
of The Expanse.
It's a really good series. I even the books I had to. So when I first read the books, I listened to them on audio, and this was back when audio first came out. And I remember specifically, I was mowing the lawn, and the first mention of the vomit zombies happened.
I almost gave up there.
What the hell is that? And why are they talking about vomit zombies? It almost threw me completely off. And the first time
I'm glad I stayed, though.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the unpopular tact that I think the show is way better than the books.
I agree. I actually agree with that.
So I'm going to go back and watch it. So
because I got through the first 3 books after almost stopping on the first book, and then started the 4th book, and I think I got probably 3 or 4 or 5 chapters into the 4th book, and I was like, nope, done.
Mm-hmm.
But then when the 4th season came out, or the 3rd season came out, and then I knew the 4th season was starting, I went back to actually read the 4th book, and it turned out to not be horrible. I haven't read the rest of them, but I agree. I think the series is better than on.
They're good. It's just the pacing in the books is so glacial.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially with the amount of stuff that they do in the books. I mean, they could have just really compacted it and just made it hit a lot faster and pacing wise. But yeah, maybe we'll talk about that next Monday. We'll talk about The Expanse.
I'll be listening.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, Chris. It was a blast having you on. And everybody in the chat is calling you Chris Fox Max Headroom. So if you go back and watch it later, you'll catch the reference, because
I can't wait.
It's pretty fun.
It's epic. most epic episode ever, as always.
Beautiful.
Everybody in the live chat, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with us on live. If you picked up Terrence Malloy's book, thank you. If you didn't pick it up, go and pick it up right now. It's 99 cents. You can do that. Support Terrence and support the show. And come back next week. We're going to be talking about The Expanse. Do some research, watch some of the episodes, and read some of the books. We'll talk about it next week. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time. We're going to talk about some reading. We're talking about some writing and everything in between right here on Keystroke Medium. Peace.